Four, three, two, and one. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high-net-worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust or a 1031 exchange, or really just having a team of professionals to help you exit an asset so you can defer millions of dollars of capital gains tax. Is a great plan to have in place so that you're not getting hammered with those tax. You can create and preserve more wealth, or help your clients, friends, and family do the same. For those who don't know me, my name is Swarts, and I'm founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, wealth, and business minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. Hey, I'm excited about our next guest. She's out of the great state of Nevada. In fact, she's known as the Wealth Protection Diva, and has had a successful entrepreneur business, premier business strategist for over 30 years. And she's the president and CEO of Sage International, Inc. With over 30,000 national and global clients. She has mastered the art of teaching entrepreneurs how to effectively start, grow, and expand a successful business. Her areas of expertise are multiple because of her strong sense of business, combined with all of her past experience as a teenage fry cook, escrow officer, apprentice carpenter, chocolate manufacturing business owner, so much other cool things. And she brings a level of expertise to this episode and to her clients. Please welcome to the show with me, Cheri Hill. Cheri, how you doing?
Good. Thank you, Brad. Always a pleasure, and appreciate the opportunity to chat with your people out there.
Absolutely. And for those who are wondering what we're going to be chatting about, it's really don't let the world kick you in the assets, right? And so we're going to explain what that means and how to have some asset protection, how to build your business in a smart way. But Cheri, before we dive into that, would you give our listeners a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, Brett. So thank you for the opportunity. And as you mentioned, we're 30 years in business this year. So as you can imagine, working with a lot of real estate investors, professionals, entrepreneurs over the course of that time has really allowed me personally to understand everything it takes to start, grow, exit a successful business. But what really launched our company is we go back into, we started in 93. And Brett, are you familiar with Robert Allen, who wrote the book, Nothing Down?
It does sound familiar, yes.
Yeah. So Robert, we met first, and we used to go speak in his workshops, talk about, at that time, it was corporations, and of course, being based in Nevada corporations, limited partnerships, things like that, because LLCs didn't exist. And he encouraged us to write our book, Incorporate and Get Rich. And so we wrote our book, we launched our book. It is a bestseller. It's still selling. I've written it 7 times, so it's still selling out there and very successful, and people love it. And so that helped my dad, who we started this business together, C.W. Allen, to go out and speak at, large real estate investment seminars and things like that. And there was one particular afternoon he was speaking, and after he spoke, a gentleman comes racing up the aisle, shakes his hand, and says, "I am blown away by what you share." He said, "I am surrounded by professionals, tax, legal, all these people, and not one of them ever said, 'Gee, Robert, you should be using these entities to protect your wealth and protect your assets.'" He happened to be a very successful real estate investor, and his name, Robert Kiyosaki. And so we helped Robert. He became our client. We got him all structured, really educated him about the benefits of using corporations, limited partnerships, trusts, things like that. And I remember one day he was sitting in my office and he said, "Cheri, I'm going to write a best-selling book and I need you to be ready." I said, "Well, Robert, why do I need to be ready? You're writing a book, right? What's a book going to do?" And so he said, "Well, because of what you guys helped me to really understand, I'm going to put your 800 number in. I'm going to reference your book. talk about you and put you in my new book coming out called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So we chuckled and away he went. And of course, he wrote the book. It became a new thought revolution, certainly in this country. And our phone started ringing, ringing, ringing. And it was about a year or so later, I ran into him and I said, Robert, you were absolutely right. Because this is probably about our 5th, 6th year in business. We went from maybe 300,000 a year to over 4 million in 1 year because of that book. And so I really have to give accolades out there to him for allowing us to be in that book, to really launching our business globally. And it continues to this day. I talk to people all the time, especially young real estate investors who have read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, buy into the principles and what he shared. And of course, I'm always the next step. You want to create your wealth, you got to have a solid foundation. And so the use of corporations, LLCs, all those things is what really helped us help all the people that we work with.
Absolutely amazing, incredible. Yes, Robert Kiyosaki is an icon. I think he's a national hero. I think he is an entrepreneur's, like King Arthur, right? He kind of started a lot of the way that commercial real estate and investors build wealth, look at wealth, and incredible. We're talking with Cheri Hill, a wealth protection diva. You can learn more about her by going to sageintl.com. That's Sage, SAGEINTL.com. And we're going to be diving into all of these details of not letting the world kick you in the assets and making sure that you're properly protected with your business and entity structures. But sure, before we go there, I want to take one other step back. I believe we've all been given certain gifts in this life, and this gifts have been given to us to be a blessing and help to others. Some people call them strengths, some people call them superpowers. I'm curious, what are those 1 or 2 gifts that you believe you were given? Maybe go back to the days of college or high school or even earlier, right? That you believe you were given, and how does it help how you help and bless people today?
So I take 2 gifts. One gift is, which I still use every single day, is my ability to digest massive amounts of information. So legal, tax, financial, and be able to put it back out, which leads into my second gift of effective communication. So I take the very complex, I make it simple. I help people, they've gone out and they've talked to a lot of different individuals about what they should do to start, grow, or exit their business, and they leave confused, concerned, they don't know. And I'm able to just literally, within a matter of moments, listen to them, their language, and then come back and share options, things like that. So a lot of it, the ability with effective communication goes back to when I was a fry cook, when I owned a chocolate manufacturing business. I was a Renaissance fair wench for 12 years. I hawked ale. So I've always been out there with a lot of people and really helping people keep moving forward. And it's what I love. I love these opportunities, Brett, with you to be able to talk to people, share with people, and make it simple so they can make positive and life-changing decisions about how to create their wealth and how to protect their wealth.
Fantastic. Yeah. So download massive amounts of information from multiple different, maybe even tax and investment and structuring, and then be able to make the complex simple and help people to take action. Is that a fair summary?
Exactly.
Perfect. So now with that in mind, let's dive right into not letting the world kick you in the assets. So what is the number one secret, Cheri, to making sure that we are protected when structuring and setting up business entities?
So, whenever you start to create wealth, you become a target. People want what you have. And so whether that's through the legal side, the IRS, ex-employees, you get a divorce, you've got spouses, all those kinds of things. So when I look at how to protect your assets, I look at 3 things. So liability insulation, tax reduction, estate planning, and probate avoidance. So all those 3 things tie together in order for you to officially grow, protect, and leverage your hard-earned wealth. And so people come to me because they want to start a business, or they're already a real estate investor and they have multiple properties in multiple states. So if they don't know that the more wealth you create, the more insurance you have, the more unprotected you are, that one mistake, one issue, one problem, one disgruntled, one IRS situation literally can wipe you out. And so the rules, the laws, the statutes all say we have reasonable methods in order for you to not lose everything as you grow everything. And so that's where I spend the bulk of my time. Where are you at in this process? What do we need to do to help you overcome and resist all those challenges by utilizing those entities like LLCs, corporations, trusts, limited partnerships, things that you're doing, Brett, with your DST and 1031s and all kinds of things, all the tools in our toolbox.
Excellent. So the number one secret is awareness that the more wealth you create and build, the more you become a target, which means the more structuring and the more strategy you need to have around your business and your assets, liability protection, tax reduction. You said estate and probate, I believe are the two. It could just take one IRS, situation or one disgruntled tenant or one something that could wipe you out. Am I way off or am I right on?
Well, no, this just happened. I never have to make anything up. This is what I love. I mean, literally in 1 week, I can share multiple examples. So we just formed a California entity for a beekeeper. Now I'm a beekeeper, so it was cool. However, so immediately we just formed this entity. The ink wasn't even dry. And I get a subpoena because I am a commercial registered agent. I get a subpoena, but I'm not the registered agent on this entity to produce all documents. So I went back and forth with the attorney, and who is suing this guy is his wife that he's getting a divorce through. I never spoke to the client. I'm a third party in this transaction just to form the entity, but I would have asked the question, is there any issues? Are you in a divorce? Are you trying to hide assets from this wife that you're divorcing? And guess what? It's not going to work because I've been subpoenaed. The CPA is going to be subpoenaed. He's going to be subpoenaed. And the guy hasn't even started. This just all happened last week, right? So that's one example. So disgruntled spouse. We've had many examples. I just had another one. I got a call yesterday. So a client, they're now a client, selling their real estate in Florida, trying to buy a property here in Reno. The guy went out 3 years ago, formed his own LLC, put the property under the LLC, and now he's trying to sell it. And the title company and the lender want to know, where's your operating agreement? You have nothing that proves that you own this LLC. So I'm going to create an operating agreement for him so he can produce it for the bank. But of course, what always happens, Brett? We're closing escrow tomorrow. We need this now, right? And so what I try and do is make sure that you don't end up in those situations by asking the right questions up front, making sure you have all the documents you're going to need to go forward, and then continuing to educate our clients about the importance of keeping your entities up to date, having your minutes done, all those things. So, because you never know when something is going to show up.
Yeah, because it's not just the entity; it's the execution of the team behind it to help to manage and execute on this entity, this LLC, the S corp, the C corp, whatever it might be. Okay, great. So we got number one is obviously you take it serious. You got to take it serious. You got to have a team. You got to get it. You got to get in place, which leads to number two. What's the number two secret that you would say to making sure that you are not letting the world kick you in the assets?
So, our biggest expense always is taxes, right? I mean, you're in the world of capital gains and reducing that or eliminating it for as long as possible. And I look at it as a business owner. What are all the things that I can be taking advantage of within the tax code? So, Brett, I learned many, many years ago, there's two tax codes in this country. There's the one that says I am a W-2 employee. I earn, I'm taxed, I get to spend what's left. As a business owner, I get to earn, spend, deduct, and then pay a tax on what is left. So which tax code should most people be operating under? The second one, right? So I look at, as a business, what are all the things that you can do with before tax? So that's, I have a real heartburn for the IRS. And so in my world, everything legal, even aggressive, that's legal that you can do to effectively reduce your taxes, I'm going to share and teach and educate. And so as a business owner, I would much rather benefit my employees than write one check to Uncle Sam. So let me go back to that story of Robert Kiyosaki. Okay. So remember, we went from about 300,000 to 4 million in 1 year, which means that even though, we got through it, but that meant there was a lot of revenue coming in. And fortunately, I have the most amazing CPA on the planet. So in October of that year, we sat down and I said, Lisa, based on what we're earning, what it's going to look like through the end of the year, how much tax am I going to have to pay the IRS if I don't do something? She said, right now, Cheri, you would have to write them a check for almost $300,000. Of course, I almost fell out of my chair, right? I didn't have $300,000 sitting in a bank account to write to the IRS. I said, what can I do? So we immediately established, at that time, you had to have a pension and a profit sharing plan. We threw $100,000 into that. I gave everybody raises. So all my employees all got a real nice hefty raise through the end of the year. I bought all new equipment because we obviously had to expand. So new computers, things like that. And then, Brett, we had one hell of a Christmas party. And you know how much money I wrote to the IRS?
How much?
Zero. I will not do it. And so knowing that, understanding what it means to be in the world of advanced tax planning, which most CPAs are, they're historians, they take all your info at the end of the year, plug it in and file a tax return. Just by knowing to sit down with someone 3-4 months before the end of the tax year so you can do what you need to do to effectively reduce taxes saves millions.
Amazing.
That's
so
what I'm about.
So taxes, but not just knowing the taxes, having the team to help you execute and take advantage of the legal, tax loopholes, tax incentives, whatever you want to call them, right? And so which kind of leads to the next question. You mentioned Robert, right? And all the success there, which is so cool. I'm curious, what would you say is Robert's most maybe undercover secret or undercover, maybe not as known, from the general public who reads the book, right? Secret to success. What is it about Robert that you would say, wow, this is how he's been able to, achieve and sustain and build upon and become an icon? What comes to mind for you, being that you've been so close to him for so long?
Well, it's understanding the internal workings of how business works, and so having a foundation. So one of the things that we, income shifting, right? So you're not trying to do everything in one entity. So if you're making that kind of money way back then, and still to this day, remember, you can utilize states like Nevada, Wyoming, South Dakota, Texas that don't have, income taxes, right? So Nevada, Wyoming, South, we don't have income taxes. And so by utilizing more than one entity to shift income, do other things out of those entities, it's always looking and reviewing what I call your foundation for freedom, right? So your foundation for freedom is, what are those business entities that allow you to grow wealth and then shift income, or do the things that I did where you start taking advantage of the tax code. And so that's and it's not just Robert, it's all very successful, wealthy people. They don't operate out of one corporation or one LLC, right? They have foundations, they have trusts, they have all kinds of things. So it's all moving and working together. And my philosophy is we boil it all down to liability protection, tax reduction, and then estate planning, right? And so what are we doing throughout the course of your lifetime, your strategy, so it morphs, adapts, and adopts to what you're doing, so you always stay within those 3 factors.
Excellent. So it sounds like he really knows the inner workings of business entities, tax, and then has a team of professionals like yourself to help him to take advantage of the ever shifting and changing, some of them, I think, rules or incentives, right?
Yeah, because the laws change, tax reform, all these things are always changing. Estate planning is always changing in that realm too. And so who do you have on your team that's keeping up with all that, right? That's why I don't sell insurance. I don't sell real estate. I don't do what you do. I have people that I align with that are expert at everything that they do. I'm a huge believer of staying in your lane. I am entities and starting businesses, growing businesses, protecting and exiting businesses, right? I don't want to do all that other stuff because I can't keep up with all the changes and case law and everything going on out there. So that's why I align with people like you, Brett, who do your thing. I'm not ever going to do what you do.
Yep.
I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to understand it, but I'm not going to do it. Right.
Absolutely. That makes sense. Exactly. It's a team effort. And it's almost like having, an ACL knee surgeon and a brain surgeon and a general practitioner. And there's different specialists in healthcare, and there's different specialists with growing your wealth. And you want to make sure that you have the right number to call at the right time. For us, it's deferring capital gains tax for people when they're exiting highly appreciated crypto businesses, real estate, saving a failed 1031 exchange. That is our niche. And even inside of that, we focus like a laser on the deferred sales trust. Of course, we'll do 1031 exchanges, Delaware statutory trust, even CRTs we don't do ourselves. We push out. Even 1031 exchanges, we work with accommodators who do that. We're not the accommodator. But we'll help people, kind of look at their options but then narrow down, particularly on the deferred sales trust, if that's a good fit. That being said, I want to transition to a series LLC, which I think is one of the best kept secrets even still within the world of entities. So what is the number one secret to the series LLC, and why do you love it so much, Cheri?
Oh, I absolutely do. And so what's beautiful about the series LLC, so back in the day, in order to really protect your assets, so if you're a real estate investor and you own, let's use 5 houses, right? So you have 5 single family, you have tenants in there. The old way is we typically would put 1 property inside 1 LLC, maybe 2, right? Depending on how much equity you have in that property. So that gets very costly, it gets expensive, it gets confusing because of all these different LLC. So about 20 some years ago, of course, Delaware is always the leader. Then comes Nevada, then comes Wyoming. So they adopted the series LLC, and then through our legislature passed the ability to form these, right? So what a series LLC does is I create 1 LLC, 1 federal tax ID number, but through the documentation, I build out what you call each series, right? I call them cells. So cell 1 is property 1, cell 2 is property 2, on and on and on. There's no limit as to how many you can put in these. In the statute, it says if there is a property or if there is a problem in cell 1, property 1, that doesn't transfer over to cell 2, property 2, or 3 or 4. So it's like little mini liability insulation around each property, but it's all in 1 LLC. About 14 states have them right now. I know that I was the second person to file one in the state of Iowa, and I've been doing them in Texas and, of course, Nevada, Missouri, Oklahoma, any state that has them. If I have real estate investors in those states, that's the entity I'm going to use. Now, to a lot of people, it's very confusing. They still think it's a bunch of LLC. I just had a big fight with one of my clients' lenders who was requiring that their property in the cell had its own tax ID number. And I said, absolutely not. We will never do that. We're not doing that. I've cleaned up many for people that don't understand them. And so no, 1 entity, 1 tax ID number, each property in its own cell or the series. And what's nice is you can have different members in those cells or series. I don't typically do that. I have other ways that I deal with your joint venturing with other people to invest, but phenomenal tool. Love them, love them, love them.
It feels like that you'd probably want to use a series LLC in just about any structuring, but maybe am I way off? Like, in other words, when wouldn't you use a series LLC moving forward, knowing what you just said just right there?
Well, I can't use them in California because they don't acknowledge them. So there are, as I said, there's only about 14 states that have them written in the statutes. So in states that don't, I have gotten away with where I form a Nevada series LLC, and I have a client who owns a bunch of real estate in Indiana. And so we went to the title company, showed them all the documents, and they were okay with him titling into each separate cell, right? Even though Indiana doesn't have the series. What's the risk? If there's an issue or a problem, would the Indiana courts recognize it as a series? That's the question. Hasn't really been challenged. So oftentimes what I'll do is if I have an investor and we can take advantage of the series, and then they go out and buy a property in another state, I may form an entity in that state, but have the membership held by that one cell. I also use this for people that go out and invest in like oil and gas leases where they have a lot of different investments, and my series, my cell, is the owner of that particular investment. So I had one I set up years ago, and it was all vending machines. So each one they wanted in their own little series for each vending machine. So I like to equate it to they can be different, like eggs in a carton. They're still all eggs in a carton. They might be shaped a little differently, but they're still all eggs. So I like to use them mainly and always for real estate investing.
Excellent. Okay, that's fantastic. That's a series LLC. And if you want to learn more about this right now and more about Cheri Hill, you can go to sageintl.com. That's SAGEINTL.com. She is the wealth protection diva. Cheri, I would like to transition into one of the topics at hand for a lot of our listeners, which is, capital gains tax deferral, right? And sometimes these 1031 exchanges can be a little bit frustrating, a little bit, let's just say trying to squeeze a circle into a square peg. So I'm curious, what in your experience, with your clients and your background, what would you say is the biggest frustration you've seen with the 1031 exchange and or lack of their options for other assets that aren't 1031 eligible?
Yeah, so the good news is when I was an escrow officer, Brett, in California, I was for 10 years, I cut my teeth on 1031 exchanges. That's all we did. So you can imagine this is back in the early 80s. We didn't have computers. And so we would do 10-way exchanges. And of course, it's phenomenal. What a amazing education I received. So I understand 1031s. Right now, the issue, of course, is, I can sell my property. I want a 1031. It's trying to find that other property, right? Because of interest rates and loans and costs are much higher. So a lot of people are having some issues. So reverse exchanges will work sometimes. Obviously, your solution, where if I'm at an age where I don't want to continue to invest in the real estate, because I want to be out of the game. So I'm moving into the legacy part of my wealth, right? Where I'm trying to let go, simplify, reduce down. That's where capital gains tax solution is really phenomenal. And I'm so excited to work with you because it makes a lot of sense. I'm not forced into, I must continue on. One of the things that I did notice many years ago is a lot of young real estate investors is how they really move the needle. So they gather up those 5 single families, partner up with others, and invest in apartment complexes and really moved up the wealth creation stage because they used the power of 1031s. But it's timely, it's complicated. Everyone has to be on the same page. Everything must fall into place because you only have a certain period of time. And things happen. In all the years, there is never a smooth escrow. Never. And so with that, having, if people don't know about the deferred, the DST, things like that, then it's just one less tool in the toolbox for them to know there's this option. And that's why I love this, because I imagine a lot of my clients have been with me 30 years, they're retiring, they're passing, they're all kinds of things, and they don't want to continue to invest in real estate. So that's
100%.
seeing the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And if people want to learn more about the Deferred Sales Trust, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. And it does work for cryptocurrency businesses. You can save your failed 1031 exchange if you have the accommodator that will accommodate. And we have those strategic alliances to help you with that. We just love the freedom that it provides, Cheri. At the end of the day, we're all in search of some kind of freedom, and that could be passive financial freedom, right? It's part of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game and the cash flow quadrant, and even Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? Getting out of the rat race. And/or you want time and energy freedom. You want estate tax freedom. You want 1031 freedom. You want location freedom. And when people are selling these big homes and these big businesses and cryptocurrency and real estate, sometimes, like we just did a deal for a client out of Idaho, he sold 5 mobile home parks. His name's Gary. He shared his whole story on my YouTube channel, on the podcast as well. It's coming out about he got financial freedom. He did an amazing job of growing about 2 million to about 10 million over about 5 or 7 years. But he found himself just inundated with management and changing laws and, just frustrating at being a landlord. And so he used the Deferred Sales Trust to not only keep his cash flow, but in fact, increase his cash flow, but really decrease all the time and energy and stress. And so he goes, Brett, this is incredible. I've been waiting for this. I didn't want to trade my 5 mobile home parks for 10 mobile home parks. I already had 5 problems, big problems, problems being his time and energy. If I can get rid of all of that and I can travel more and spend more time with my family and maybe start another business venture, maybe even still buy real estate with the Deferred Sales Trust, which you can, he goes, why wouldn't I do this? That being said, most people, Cheri, they go, it sounds too good to be true. Like, why isn't everybody doing this? I'm curious, you heard about it, I think about 60 days ago now, right? And you're becoming one of our strategic alliances for LLCs and different things like that. I'm curious, what was your thought when you first heard of it? And how are you feeling now?
Well, I was really excited because I love a bigger toolbox. So obviously, I'm having conversations with my clients every day. And so now I have this option. What I really love about this, Brett, which, in the rage of all the self-directed IRAs. So, I've been on the front end of every trend, right? Because I've been doing this for so long. So all the rage of the self-directed IRAs, which are still phenomenal tools, but you have, prohibited transactions. You're very limited as to what you can do. And depending on your age, you can never touch that money for years. And so, again, a very powerful tool. It works in a lot of situations. Same with the younger investors who want to do regular 1031s because they're in all that wealth accumulation and everything else. But what I love about your solution is there's really no limit. I put my money in, I can take the money back out, I can go invest it with other things that I want to do. And so the flexibility of it, the fact that it is a note, and it pushes the capital gains tax out for as long as I want it. I can continue to invest. I just think I look at these as money buckets. And I think this is just another powerful money bucket that I can utilize for whatever reason without all the limits and the structuring and all the issues that come with other types of trusts and things like that. So
amazing. Yeah. Thanks, Cheri, for sharing that. It's encouraging, and it's always nice to see someone who can get it so quickly and see the freedoms they can provide. By the way, people want to learn more about that, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can also check out the new book that's coming out. We're calling it Building a Tax Deferred Exit Strategy. And it's a proven playbook for unlocking your wealth plan when selling assets of any kind for yourself or for your clients. So take a look at that. We actually might even change the title. I don't know what you think. I think we're going to call it Building a Capital Gains Tax Solutions Exit Plan. Kind of long.
Don't make it too long.
I know, right? But we're kind of back and forth. But because when people think tax, it can be kind of broad. But if capital gains taxes, so we'll see where it lands up. But that being said, Cheri, we're running out of time. Enough about that. Are you ready for the lightning round?
I am.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back to your 25-year-old self, Cheri, what's the one golden nugget you make sure to tell yourself to do?
I think I would have probably put more money into a retirement account or something. I was a gypsy. I mean, I told you I worked at the Renaissance Fair, at a chocolate business. I was doing all kinds of really fun stuff and wasn't really thinking about how to prepare so much for my future. And so that would be the difference there, is to start either investing in real estate or whatever. But I was doing a lot of other cool stuff. So all
Excellent.
in my arsenal of education.
Excellent. Besides Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what's the number one book you recommend generally to, maybe it's one of your books too, which is cool.
Yeah, it's
Your
Incorporate and
clients or
Get
people.
Rich. You can get it on Amazon. Still valid, still makes sense. That's a wonderful book. I have a phenomenal library, Brett, like I'm sure you do. I have so many books that I have loved and used and recommend to people, depending on where they're at in life and what their situation is. But can't go wrong with those two, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Incorporate and Get Rich.
Perfect. Those are awesome. Fantastic. Next question. What are you most curious about right now?
What I'm most curious about is I have a radio show. And so I'm going to do a solo, and it's all about recession proofing your business. And so having been through 9/11 and the 2008 financial meltdown, I have pretty good insight and perspective on how you weather the storm, stay positive, stay focused, and have faith. And so I'm going to share that on my radio show, but it's just going to be interesting to me the next 2 years, this administration and what they're trying to do to businesses and the tax code and everything else. So
that sounds phenomenal. I can't wait for that show to be released. I'm going to subscribe for sure. Which leads to our last question, Cheri. After all the years, all the success you've had helping all the people you've helped, what's the habit that you to help you stay centered? What's the habit that you practice to help you stay centered in your values and encouraged to charge forward to reach even higher heights?
So I'm a huge believer in, when I come to work 9 to 5, and then I go home and I don't work. I don't work weekends. I don't put in, I mean, once in a while, obviously, as we all do, but it's not a practice. And so I really am focused. I believe focus is what creates success. And for me, it's focus on work when I'm at work, focus on family and home when I'm at home, go play, have a good time, and don't burn yourself out. So I do a lot of extreme camping. I'm a beekeeper, and I just love to not be in my head all the time with work. So that's my key. It's never balanced, but it's definitely focus, live in the moment, and be where you're supposed to be when you're there.
I absolutely love that. I think it's a practice we can all be encouraged and challenged by, to do exactly that. Be where you're at, 9 to 5. There's a thing called a 20-mile march, which is an incredible analogy story of exactly what you just said. And that's something else for people to look up. We're out of time, Cheri Hill. This has been more than a pleasure. I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for sharing with us a ton of valuable information. I want to encourage you to keep using your gift of downloading a massive amount of information, especially around tax and liability and businesses and investments, and then sharing that with everybody, making the complex simple so people can take action. And for those who want to get in touch with you, would you remind us one last time what's the best place for them to find you?
So you can go to our website, sageintl.com, or call 800-254-5779. I offer a free 30-minute consult. Want to learn more about what you're doing, and we take steps from there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show. I also want to thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. We're also streaming on Expert CRE Secrets, by the way. We're streaming live to YouTube as well, to Facebook and Twitter. So that's kind of cool if you're on there checking us out there. Then we also release this on iTunes and Spotify. So you can really find us just about anywhere that, podcasts or videos are produced. But we want to thank you for being a part of a listening part of the show. I want to thank you for your encouragement and your support. It means a lot to us. If you could rate, review, subscribe, or share this with someone who could be of inspiration or help to, that would be super appreciative. You can also figure out ways to work with us if you'd like to. You can go to capitalgainstax.com, find out how to save a failed 1031 exchange. Don't forget the book that's coming out soon on Amazon. I do think it's going to be called Building a Capital Gains Tax Solutions Exit Plan, which is so long, but
Well,
it
you
gets
know
to
what?
the
We
point,
can
right?
brainstorm on that because I'm real good.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe we should. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know a thing about books, right? So,
Yeah.
that being said, thanks everyone for listening, and we